Keiko's Diary.
Welcome to the Keiko's Diary podcast, where I get up close and personal with creatives to uncover the people behind the art. Without further ado, let's bring in today's guest, the composer of an icon, Nathan McCree.
Hello. Very happy to be here.
Now, Nathan, you are a musical genius who has composed music and handled the sound effects for so many legendary works, including the first 3 Tomb Raider games, which launched the global phenomenon that endures to this day. You've even worked with the Spice Girls, and you now run your own studio and continue to illuminate the world with your touch of magic. So, I just want to know, what were you like growing up, and did you ever think you would end up becoming such a renowned composer?
I never really sort of planned my life, and I still don't. I tend to sort of go where it takes me, and I sort of just follow what I want to do. My mum used to call me the noisy creature. Whether that's got anything to do with it, I don't know. Always singing, making up harmonies to songs, particularly with my dad. You know, he was always playing me music and encouraging me to sort of listen to what was going on, you know, behind the main melody or vocal that's in that sort of piece of music. And he would play me stuff and then say, who's the composer? And I had to guess. I mean, it could have been anybody. I mean, it was so difficult. I never, ever got it right. But he would always play the game with me. And I wasn't really all that interested at the time, because he was sort of always playing me classical music and choral music and stuff. And as a sort of 5 and 6 year old, I wasn't really kind of interested in that. You know, I was into Genesis and the Police.
I know, right?
Like that. Later, when I got into the games industry and I started writing, and then, you know, all that music that my dad had played me sort of started to kind of come out and be useful. And I just wanted to be in a band. I was really interested in synthesizers. My dad said, no, you're going to university. So I did that. I studied software engineering, and then I got a job as a programmer, coincidentally, with a games company. I didn't even know there were a games company when I went for the interview. And it wasn't until I got to the reception and I saw all the games covers artwork on the wall, and I was like, is this a games company? And they're like, yeah. And I was like, stroke of luck, you know. So I got my job there as a programmer, which was to code a music sequencer. So I wrote some music on it to demonstrate how it worked, and the boss was really chuffed with the music and said, did I want to write the music for the next games? Been doing that for now 30 years.
Why don't we take a minute to play my favorite segment, the 60-second 411. Favorite color?
Blue.
Favorite movie?
Blade Runner.
Favorite song?
Walking on the Moon by the Police.
Favorite game?
Medal of Honor.
Greatest fear?
Greatest fear? Losing a child.
Ooh, hot or cold weather?
Hot.
Night owl or morning bird?
Used to be night owl, morning bird now.
Favorite singer?
Yeah, that's a difficult one, but one that stood out for me, Freddie Mercury.
Favorite food?
Indian curry.
Ooh, favorite holiday?
Beach holiday.
Biggest pet peeve?
People stealing my music.
Cats or dogs?
Cats.
If you had a superpower, what would it be?
Flying.
Favorite Spice Girl?
Jerry Halliwell.
Favorite subject in school?
Music.
Good job, Nathan! Oh my goodness, you did it!
Hey.
The Spotlight.
Tomb Raider and Lara Croft have been 2 of the most iconic names in pop culture since the 90s. The games have sold almost 100 million copies. That's insane. And the franchise is worth close to $1.2 billion, which is around 780 million pounds. Oh my goodness. And I personally have been a Tomb Raider fan since before I can even remember. I've only ever played the games created by Core Design. And the first 3 in which you composed they're just pure magic. So I just have to know, was there any specific influence or inspiration you had while making the music for these 3 games? And just what are your best memories working on it?
But I remember for Tomb Raider 1, nothing sort of too specific, but I remember some of the cinematic scenes. But, because I was really trying to make an interactive movie, and I remember listening or watching the film Where Eagles Dare, which is an old World War II movie with Richard Burton, I think, and Clint Eastwood, I think he's in it. But I remember the score for that. It's just brilliant. I'm pretty sure some of that will have drifted into the writing of some of those cinematic scenes in Tomb Raider 1. Tomb Raider 2 was a little bit more specific. The Venice track, for instance.
That one's incredible.
Really good fun to write because, I listened to a lot of Vivaldi and Bach and Albinoni because I thought, well, if she's going around Venice, what better music than to give her some Venetian classical music. So I just started listening to those guys and just listening to what instruments they're using, what harmonic structure they do, what chord progressions, and then I sort of just changed the notes a little bit, so it was McCree rather than Vivaldi. I had fan email from people saying, where's that music? Is that one of Vivaldi's? Is that a Bach piece? And people asking me where it was from. It's like, well, actually, no, I wrote it. Tibetan Foothills in Tomb Raider 2, which is a percussion piece.
Yes.
And I drew influence from the Japanese kodo drumming because that had a particular sound which I really liked. But again, the instruments that I was using didn't sound like real kodo drums. So I would use, or at least use similar kind of patterns to what they were doing, but with sounds that I had on the synthesizers at the time when I was writing it. So it's like kodo with African drums. The Tomb Raider 3 theme
is so epic.
The movie 12 Monkeys had just come out with Bruce Willis, and I loved it. I thought, and I still do. I think it's a fantastic story.
Totally.
I love anything to do with time travel and things like that. I think it's just brilliant. But there was a signature theme, if you like, in 12 Monkeys in the main theme, which is played on an accordion. So it goes a bit like that. And the did it was the bit which I thought, well, yeah, I kind of like that, but instead of a main theme, I'll just use it as a accompaniment. So I used the accordion to get that the same sound that they were using in 12 Monkeys. You got the Indian jungle section, there was so those kind of instruments coming in, the sitar and the tabla. So again, I was sort of drawing from Indian music to sort of, help describe the Indian jungle when we were all working on Tomb Raider. It was a really great team of people. I'm still really good friends with all of them. And, we really became like a sort of family together. And we all had, I guess, a little bit more money than your average sort of mid-20s person. Going out and eating out wasn't a problem ever.
That's good.
And so we did go out a lot, all of us, and all of us together as well, which, really sort of united us all. 3 years of that was just brilliant, absolutely brilliant fun. But one of the best moments, I guess, sort of actually working on the game was when my dad came over to see me for a visit. And so I took him into work with me. And I was actually writing the Tomb Raider 3 theme at the time, and he sat there for a whole day and just listened to me write it, and was sort of encouraging me this way and that way. Oh, that's nice, oh, I like that, and
Nathan, I just truly think that you single-handedly changed game music, truly, because it had never been done before. You made it cinematic. My hat's off to you. And it's funny because on every episode of the podcast, I ask the guest who their favorite Spice Girl is, but you have actually worked with them. You composed the epic intro music for their Christmas in Spiceworld Tour in 1999. I have a confession. When I was younger, I loved the intro so much that I recorded it on a tape player so I could listen to it over and over in my private time.
Okay, great. I'm not sure it was a call or an email from the Spice Girls show's lighting director.
Wow.
And there's a guy called Peter Barnes, great bloke, and he said to me, look, we want to use a couple of pieces from Tomb Raider for the introduction to the Spice Girls Christmas show. I said, how about I write you a special piece for the show, specifically for the show, that sounds like Tomb Raider, but we can kind of add some Spice Girls melodies in there. And he said, oh, okay, yeah, I kind of like that idea. Let me check with the girls and see if they're up for it. And then about a week later, he came back to me and said, yeah, okay, we'd like to try it. So I was like, great. The sort of first half of it is a bit like, it's a bit like the Tomb Raider 2 theme. And then the second half is a bit like the Skidoo. It's got one of the Spice Girls melodies on it.
Yes, spice up your life.
Yeah, it's that one. I sent him a demo after about 2 weeks of writing it. And he said, yeah, that's great. I'll play it to the girls and I'll come back to you. And they all liked it. I would like you to put some sound effects on it, he said, because we're doing a laser show in sync to the track. So he drove up from London, came all the way up to this little cottage that I was renting in the middle of Lincolnshire.
How fun.
I mean, it was in the middle of nowhere. It was in the middle of nowhere, completely. I mean, you can't see another house from there. It's just flat farmland as far as you can see. Anyway, so he turns up, and we spent the day adding sort of laser sounds and explosions and all sorts of, bits and pieces, sound effects, basically. So then they sent me an invitation, VIP tickets to the show. So down to London I went, Earls Court Stadium. I had front row seat, and so here I am, surrounded by younger than teenage girls, like thousands and thousands of them, and the lights went down and my tune started playing, and
what an experience.
25,000 screaming girls just jumped out of their seats and just went mental. And yeah, I was speechless. My heart was pumping like mad. I was so nervous. But of course nobody knew me or why I was there or anything, so I was like an anonymous bystander, just watching the mayhem, just watching what was going on. It was absolutely fantastic. I mean, the light show was just magic. And the music was so loud, man. It was just fantastic. It was definitely the highest point of my career. And I loved the show. The Spice Girls did an amazing job. I went to the after show party and I met, a few of them. Girl power was all in. It was the rage. And I think that's what really helped Tomb Raider and what helped, catapult it into,
good point,
big sales.
You've also been in charge of the sound effects for countless titles, including the Tomb Raider games, Lord of the Rings, Aragorn's Quest, Silent Hill Downpour, and some Lego games. Amazing. How did this skill fall into your path?
I have a brother, and he's about 4 years older than me, and we were always mucking about with Dad's recording stuff. And me and my brother started recording stuff and making up stories. Two guys in an army jeep and suddenly they get blown up by some plane, and they have to sort of escape and get out of there. So I started writing these scripts, and me and my brother would act out the people in the script.
Oh, so fun.
And then we would overdub sound effects on top of it to make it sound real. The plane flew over and big explosions and all this kind of stuff. And Dad used to show me ways of making sound effects with my mouth and the microphone, just using the microphone to sort of create explosions and stuff like this. And I just thought this was great. And it wasn't until I got my job at Core Design, and when I did the job shift from programmer to musician and I started writing music, of course I needed to make sound effects for that game as well. And it was like, oh yeah, I remember doing all this, years ago. It was like I kind of knew it all. And I just got on with it, and it was like no problem. Just loved it. It was just like, it was like my dream job forward. So I went up to senior audio designer, and then I was audio manager, and then I was being loaned out by Zoe Mode to its sister company in Brno in the Czech Republic. But I liked it so much, I went back to Zoe Mode and quit. And then went back to the Czech Republic and got a job as audio director on Silent Hill Downpour. And that's it, relocated, and I'm still here in the Czech Republic.
You started your own studio. And since then, you've even created the Tomb Raider suite with the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra.
You know, coming over here and going freelance was the biggest thing about that was actually getting the kit from England, because I had it all in storage in England. So I had to drive with a van from the Czech Republic all the way to England. It took me 2 days.
Wow.
And then I picked up all my stuff and drove all the way back again. I've been trying to record the Tomb Raider music with an orchestra for years, and I've been suggesting the idea to Eidos and then Square Enix when they bought Eidos, and I wasn't getting any joy from them. They didn't want to do it, and I don't know to this day why. I tempted them with a business plan, a live concert, there was a studio album and a TV documentary. And I said, you know, I want to do all of these 3 things for the 20th anniversary. You know, are you interested? And they said, okay, yeah, we are. We got the concert done. That was great. That worked. Because basically the Tomb Raider suite is like a collection of the most popular tunes from the first 3 games, but most of them have been extended out to 3 minutes because a lot of the game cues were only like 30 seconds or 1 minute. So basically I had to write loads of new material so that each piece would be a kind of standalone piece of music. And so the Tomb Raider suite really is 50% of it was never in the game. It's all just new music for the suite. So I was quite nervous about that because I thought, well, people are so familiar and sort of fans of the original music. It's like, well, if they don't like the new stuff, it's like dead in the water. Anyway, the concert came and we got 3 standing ovations that night.
Oh my
and I just thought, great. They love it. They love it. Great, this is going to work. Okay, let's do the next phase, which is the studio album. Abbey Road, Royal Philharmonic Orchestra. Here we go, 3 days in the best studio in England. And you're pinching yourself to sort of, you know, is this really happening? Am I really here? You know, and then somebody says, Nathan, is that all right? And you're like, oh yeah, I'm the boss. I should be concentrating, you know. Should be getting on with the work. Yeah, but I'm trying to enjoy it as well. I'm trying to sort of, I'm as much of a fan as Abbey Road as anybody else. I'm looking at all the photos going, wow, look, Rolling Stones, and I'm all like this. You know? Recorded, mixed and mastered at Abbey Road. And this is a bizarre thing because most albums don't do that. And then we did another gig at the Royal Festival Hall in London. That was also fantastic. This time we took Alison Carroll with us to play the part of Lara Croft. She got dressed up and ran around the auditorium when we were playing the skidoo, and we had Winston, the butler, follow her with the tea. Tray of tea. Yeah, following her around as she was like doing a lot of acrobatics and stuff like this amongst the audience. So we started booking more shows. We got 1 in Paris, and then we had 2 in Australia, 1 in Sydney and 1 in Melbourne, and then COVID hit. So that's kind of where our big project, it's been going since 2014, it's still going, we're still doing it, we still have the eShop, we're still selling albums and t-shirts and posters, and you know, that keeps me busy.
Have you ever
gone skydiving?
No, but I have done a parachute jump. It was a static line jump. I think 1,000 meters. Yeah, you jump out of a plane, you know, you spread yourself out and your chute opens because it's attached to the plane. So you get about 4 seconds of free fall.
I would say that's skydiving. Have you ever touched a snake?
Yeah, it was somebody's pet.
Have you ever broken your phone?
I've dropped it in the toilet, which is completely knackered it, so I suppose, yeah.
Have you ever been betrayed?
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
That's never fun.
In business several times.
Have you ever cried in public?
I've cried in public places, but have I cried to a public sort of festival crowd? No.
Have you ever broken any bones?
No.
That's awesome.
My tooth. I've broken my tooth, but I've had it fixed so you can't see it. I broke it on a croquet ball. I was juggling 3 of them, and 2 of them hit in midair, and the angle was that one of them went straight into my face and smashed my front tooth in half.
Have you ever exploded with rage?
Less lately. I think as I get older, I'm sort of learning to keep my cool a bit more. But I'm quite an emotional guy, so when things get heated and stressful, I can. If I've got to stand my ground, I can get quite. I can lose my temper.
Have you ever been cheated on?
Yeah. One of my sort of first real girlfriends, I suppose. Way back when I was 17. Yeah, I caught her in a pub sitting on another guy's lap, kissing him. Oh, it was gutting. And there's been more since.
Well, I bet they regret it now. I mean, look at you. No VIP tickets for them. Have you ever seen a ghost?
No, I don't think so.
How about a UFO?
Yeah, I don't think so either. I thought I did when I was younger. I thought I saw something out in the countryside where it's really dark. But, it could have just a couple of satellites moving simultaneously. They move very slowly, don't they?
Have you ever run away?
No.
Nothing serious?
No, I had a pretty happy childhood.
Have you ever done something crazy?
Stole my mum's car once. Went to a party. Got drunk, so drunk that I couldn't walk, and then drove home 15 miles before she woke up to use the car to go to work.
Have you ever tried something and regretted it?
I tried to learn the cello because I was learning the piano, and my mum and dad were like, how are you getting on? I don't know, I want to do something else. I wasn't really getting on with the piano to begin with. And what do you want to play another instrument? I was like, yeah, okay. So I tried the oboe for a bit. Didn't like that because it really hurt my jaw. And then I thought, I'll try the cello. And I was so bored because I wasn't very good at it. It really hurt my hand to try and play because the muscles weren't ready in my my bowing hand.
Yeah.
It's certainly not in my fingering hand either, my left hand. And it was massive. And I had to carry this thing about everywhere. And it was such a pain in the to carry it everywhere.
Have you ever pulled an all-nighter?
Yeah, plenty. My best friend at the time, Matthew, he was a drummer. He was working in a recording studio. We used to wait for the resident band that was paying for the session. We used to wait for them to all go to bed.
Yeah.
And then me and Matthew would use the studio in the night while they were sleeping. Me and Matthew would go, ooh, I got another half a track.
Have you ever been terrified?
Actually, it was at the same studio that I was just talking about when I was working with Matthew. He played a trick on me one night and I was doing some singing. He was recording me. And I was singing away, and then suddenly, boom, the power to the whole place just went out. And this is a recording studio that was made out of a converted chapel, a converted church.
Yeah.
So suddenly when all the power goes out and you're in an old church
it's spooky.
And it's pitch black, you start to get a little bit nervous, and of course it's soundproofed, so being a recording studio, so you can't hear anything outside, you can't hear anything from the control room, your headphones have gone dead, it's pitch black. This face lights up in the control room behind the viewing glass, just lights up for a couple of seconds and then disappears again. Well, my heart nearly jumped out my skin.
Fan mail.
Okay, Miss Symphony asked, do you prefer working solo or with a real orchestra?
When you're working with an orchestra, it's full-on work, quite a lot of pressure. I think I prefer being at home. I can just pop in and out of the studio at my own leisure, and there's no hassle, there's no pressure.
Victoria Long asked, which Tomb Raider game was the hardest to do and which is your fave?
My favourite is Tomb Raider 2. I like that game because you could save it, at least on the PC, you could save it at any moment.
Oh,
and
yes.
I like that.
No crystals.
3 was the hardest.
Interesting.
There were more smaller fragments of music, 5 seconds, 8 seconds, 10-second little snippets, and it's quite difficult to really kind of get into the flow of it when you're writing really little fragments. We had sort of condition or conditions under which tunes would play, so it was more difficult to manage.
Paul S34 Driver wants to know, yo, Mr. McCree, do you still have the old 90s VSTs and stuff you used for the Tomb Raider games? Also, is it true you voiced Winston?
Yo, Paul. Yes, it's true. I voiced Winston.
Thank you.
I also did the monk. My toes sweated such possibilities, lying so close to my mortal self. That guy. Well, the games had to go off to Sony for testing and for quality assurance, and we were supposed to tell them everything that we'd put in the game. So, like, one of the ones we didn't tell them was Winston farting. That was my idea.
That was your idea?
That was my idea. And of course, stuff like this, you know, if you tell them we put that in, they would ask you to take it out because they, you know, if they wanted to, they could say, no, we don't want that.
Right.
And I was afraid that they'd say that. So we thought, well, we need to bury it somewhere. We need to hide it.
Defend it at all costs.
Don't tell them. And also so that their testing team can't find it. So it's got to be buried pretty well. So it requires a bit of talking to the programmers, you know, and saying, right, what can we do? How can we hide it? All right, well, I'll tell you what, we'll do this. We'll do some complicated move that they'll never do. So, of course, we do that, and then the game goes out. 6 months later, somebody's found it. Somebody's stumbled across it, and there you go. It works! Back then, there was no such thing as VST instruments.
Interesting.
Technology wasn't... the computers weren't fast enough then. But the things that made all the sounds for Tomb Raider were 2 Roland JV1080s, and I've got both of them right here in front of me now.
Whoa.
I've kept them. Yeah, I've kept them for 30 years. I've had them, and they still work. They're still in perfect working condition, and I still use them. And I wrote all the Tomb Raider Suite stuff on those 2 machines.
That's
nothing
incredible.
else. Because I wanted it to sound exactly like it would have sounded if I'd written it in 1996. So that was the first thing. Because apart from the live orchestral recording of the Tomb Raider Suite, I also wanted to release a synth mix version of the Tomb Raider Suite.
Yeah.
So that's the new material written for the Tomb Raider Suite, but on the old machines, so it sounds like I wrote it in 1996.
Betty Matrix asks, hey Nathan, why didn't you return for The Last Revelation?
Before Tomb Raider, I was doing a lot of games every year. I mean, we were chucking out about 12 games a year, literally a game every month. And then when Tomb Raider came along, and the game started getting bigger, development time got bigger, and we were doing less games each year. And after Tomb Raider 2, I didn't have anything to do until Tomb Raider 3 was ready.
Right.
So I was going to work, and I didn't really have anything to do, and I was just getting bored. And I asked Jeremy, our boss, I said, look, you know, can I do something else? Can I just write my own music in the studio while I'm waiting for the game to be at least, you know, at some point that I can start and look at it? And he said, no. If you write anything here, it's ours. That put me off. I thought, well, in that case, I don't want to be here. So I said, well, look, how about you make me freelance? I'll promise you to do Tomb Raider 3.
This is a message actually from Alejandro Gonzalez. He just wants to say, your music comforted me through some really rough years growing up. That menu music would play and I would feel like everything was going to work out okay. I just want to say thanks for giving me a candle in the dark. I'll always go back to those themes when times are difficult. Just thanks a lot.
That's great. That's great.
That's
great to
great.
hear. I love stories like that. It's brilliant.
Yes. Oh my goodness.
I hope your life is all right now.
The Deep Dive.
If a genie could grant you 3 wishes, Nathan, what would they be?
To be healthy until I die. To be in good health until I die. About kids, I think I'd wish that they would be happy and successful in their lives. That would be another wish. I think it would just be nice to see your grandchildren.
Are you afraid of death?
There's 2 things for me. There's either nothing when you die, in which case there's nothing to fear because there's nothing. And you just don't know anything. So 1 minute you're there, the next minute it's lights out. Like before you were born. Doesn't matter. You weren't there. So There's that. Now, if there is something after you die, well, then there's nothing to be afraid of either, because there's something else to go on to. Knowing you're about to die would be something pretty scary. You live forever through your children, through your offspring and their children and their children. Because, you know, I tell my kids now all about my dad. He's gone now. But I tell them all about him and all the stupid things he used to do and the funny things he used to do and how he used to make me laugh. And it's great. And I don't feel sad about losing him at all. Every time I think about him, I just crack up laughing because he used to make me laugh so much. So I tell them all the funny things Grandad Paddy used to do, you know.
What is your biggest regret?
Smoking cigarettes. I don't smoke anymore.
Well, good for you.
I smoked for about 40 years. There are certain milestones which kind of help you quit.
Yeah.
There's 2 days, 2 weeks, 2 months, and 2 years. And after that, they reckon you can pretty much relax about, you know, not going back.
What is your earliest memory of life?
I've got a really sort of vivid memory of there was a bucket on a piece of string and a pond, and you'd throw the bucket in the pond and pull the bucket with the string, and out you'd get your bucket of water.
Oh.
And I remember the bucket went in the pond, and as I pulled the string, the weight of the water in the bucket, of course, was really heavy, and I wasn't expecting that. And because I pulled it, I lost my balance and fell towards the water. And then at that moment, I remember, I don't know, either my brother or my mum grabbing me, and then some telling off.
Yeah.
Until after that.
You know, at MLA Entertainment, we always say, keep being creative. I really believe in nurturing people's creativity. What does being creative mean to you? And how has it impacted your life and career? Any advice?
If you've got the bug for doing something like this, so for doing something creative, first thing is to remember that it costs money. Whatever it is you choose to do costs money.
It does.
Either earn money from the thing that you love doing, that's preferential. If you can do that, you got it made. Or you got to have a second job. You got to have something else that you can do that earns money that will fuel your addiction for the thing that you like being creative with. I've had to do real basic jobs to just find some money.
Yeah.
Working in a bar, painting people's living rooms, you know, painting the outside of their house, washing their car, mowing their lawn. You've got to live and breathe it, because if you're not doing it like that, somebody else is.
Before we sign off, is there anything you'd like to say to the viewers, or just any projects you'd like to tell them about?
I've just finished a game called Manic Mechanics, which is for Nintendo Switch. If there's any guys out there with Nintendo Switches, I'm sure there are.
Yep.
So Manic Mechanics is a multiplayer mayhem kind of game. You know, fast as you can, you've got to fix those cars. You've got to get the right part. You've got to service the part. You've got to fix it on the car.
Oh, fun.
And it's a team effort. And some crazy music in it, which I've written. The Tomb Raider suite has not stopped. It's still going. We are planning more concerts. Keep your eyes focused on our Facebook page and Twitter page and Instagram, and we'll, you know, let people know when our next concert's coming up. The documentary, I mean, that's coming, but there's still a bit of kind of legal work to do on that. For now, I've got another game which I'm working on, a Web3 game. That's going to be awesome. I'm Nathan McCree, and for MLA Entertainment, keep being creative.
Hey, you. You can help support the Keiko's Diary podcast by liking, subscribing, and sharing it with your friends. Sounds like you're pretty powerful. Thank you for listening, and keep being creative.